Thanks again for the invite, guys. Very glad to be back. It's always fun to talk baseball in the middle of spring training and baseball games. And I'll introduce another guy on here. You see John Kemeter on there. He's a right-hand man here. He's been here for almost 30 years. And I briefly told the story last time how he was, I knew he was the right guy to work for us when in high school, he went on a family vacation to the Grand Canyon, and he stayed in the car instead of looking over the hill because he had a Street and Smiths with him. So that's a quick, easy hire right there, and that's lasted for almost 30 years so far. So, um, spring training baseball. John and I had a discussion today about how great it is. It's in the mid 60s in Wisconsin today, which is unusual for February. It's going to be 25 tomorrow, but as most baseball fans do this time of year, we decided that the Brewers have a chance to be great this year. But I think we decide that every year. And I think everybody's pretty much in the same boat. That's the way it goes with spring training baseball. So it's awesome. We're all perfect today. In the 40 plus years that I've been doing creating and selling games, I've probably talked to thousands of baseball fans, and I hear their stories about how their gaming history started are also similar to mine, and the stat histories are so similar. So before I give a brief tour of the game, I have to give a little bit of my history, and you can compare notes because there's going to be fill in different games, fill in different stats, fill in different books, and they're all similar. So hopefully I can share the screen properly here. There we go. There we go. Got to start off with Mo Drabowski. The first game I remember ever playing was the 1969 Milton Bradley game. But I wouldn't have played it till about 70 or 71. My parents were not sports fans, so my brother Tom and I didn't get into sports until our best friend Dan from down the street introduced us to sports, basically. And Dan's family was all sports. His dad was the athletic director in town at the high school at the time, and he had a 40-year career doing that. And he fantastic golfer until he passed away a few years ago. In baseball, he was a high school star at Mayville High School. We always thought it was pretty cool. He had a high school batting champion or batting record trophy on their bookcase in their family room. And he also got recruited by Connie Mack. He got a letter from Connie Mack inviting him to try out for the team, which he never did. And I don't know what happened to the letter, but I asked my friend a few weeks back if they ever found the letter, and he's got to go back looking through stuff because obviously that'd be a fun family heirloom. But Mo Drabowski, when we discovered his brother's game in 70 or 71, he was a star. If you're not familiar with the game, let me share the back of the card. Milton Bradley, I haven't seen the game in 50 years, but the game, you rolled 2 dice and got your result. So it's pretty easy to see the hits there and the outs. I don't think there was any pitching or defense factor, but Mo Drabowski was one of the few pitchers in the set. And you can see looking at his card, he's worth way more than a $700 million player would be. So when we drafted our own teams, yeah, it was fun to get Hank Aaron and Roberto Clemente, guys like that, but it was hard to get. I guess that's the old wins above replacement, even though we didn't know what stats were. Mo Drabowski was a star. You can just look at his card there. He's hitting 500 or close to 500 and tons of extra base hits. So very valuable. And was it realistic? We didn't know. We were 7, 8 years old. We thought it was realistic. You got a card here with Hank Aaron on one side and his numbers on the other side, and it was fun. And it didn't matter if it was realistic or not. But it was just a blast to play. And like I said, we grew up for years thinking he might have been one of the greatest hitting pitchers ever, because back then you didn't have batting stats for pitchers on the back of the card. The Street and Smiths magazine didn't show them, so it was pretty sporadic. We just assumed, yeah, he was great. I didn't realize until I was probably in my 20s and actually looked it up that he was something like a career 160 hitter with 3 home runs, but not in this card. In that card, that's one of our all-time classics. My first memories of stats go back to either 70 or 71. It's a Paul Blair incident. And I share this card I don't know if it was 70 or 71, but the 71 Topps card, because those were the first cards I collected, and I just think they're awesome cards. Most people do think their first cards are awesome. Um, but also, I know a lot of people, probably most people watching this, remember learning about stats from baseball, from baseball averages and things like that. And we didn't know what averages were when we were kids, when we were 7, 8 years old. We just, I recall the three of us, me and Tom and Dan, going into a vacant lot across the street from Dan's house with our little toothpick wooden bats and tennis balls and hitting the balls as far as we could. And we figured they went 150 feet maybe. So we assumed that since Clemente could hit 300 and we were just little kids, that we hit 150. So that was our stat thing. But my Paul Blair memory is my first memory. Dan's family were big Oriole fans, which is really tough to do in the early 70s. Tom and I were Brewer fans, of course. But we were at his house for a Saturday afternoon baseball game, and Paul Blair hit one over the fence, just barely cleared the fence. And one of Dan's brothers started jumping up and down, grand slam, grand slam. And me and Tom and Dan kind of looked at each other like, wow, that just barely got over the fence. What does he mean, grand slam? So we didn't know. But obviously, we're young fans. That was about the same time, too. We asked one of his brothers what a rookie was, and the brother said, well, that's kind of hard to explain what a rookie is. So, but all part of the tour, I guess, part of the learning. Of course, once you learn how stats work, then you can start creating stuff. And with just a few changes on cards or games that you're playing, you could easily turn Ron Theobald and Rick Auerbach into Bobby Grich and Mark Belanger. So we did all that kind of stuff. Came even handier in the Little League years. I'm the stud guy on the right with the purple hat and shirt. That's White Sox. It's hard to tell from the purple. There is a company logo on the back, I think, but we got to keep the shirt, but they took the patch off, and we got to keep the hat, but I don't have it anymore. The pants, you can see I was a pretty versatile player. Could use the pants for church on Sunday too. We supplied our own pants. And like I said, my parents weren't sports fans, so that's got a little purple in it. It probably works out pretty well. But I also was not, you can't tell this picture from my first year that I was an all-star the next year. But as I said, I was pretty versatile. The coach would put me in left field sometimes right field. My batting average would have been 0, and I didn't keep stats then, but I know it was 0 because I never hit the ball once. I never even hit a foul ball. But I did walk some because I was a little guy and I was afraid to swing. So in some situations, I was probably pretty valuable. I also probably didn't make many errors in the field because I was afraid of the ball. So my range would have been low, but my number of errors would have been equally low. That's also another reason it was always fun making up games, because I could take Hank Aaron's name and cross off the Hank and put Dave, and cross off the Aaron and put Cook. And you all know you've done that kind of thing at one time or another, because I do see people's leagues that they're playing with, and I'll see names that I know are old neighborhoods or old friends, and which is fun. That's one of the fun things you can do with created games like that. And that's one of the reasons all of our games have those tools in it. I did get better after this year, not to brag, but this year my team won 2 games. The next year we won 1 game, but I improved. We were 1-13. I was our ace pitcher on that team, which I hope that doesn't sound like bragging. I did win 1 game and lost 6. And they were all complete games because they'd let you go until you got a sore arm then. The only complete game I didn't have was when I thought it would be fun to impersonate Louis Tiant in the 2nd inning. And I didn't think my coach would have noticed, but he noticed. So that was my non-complete game. After that year, we moved to another town. We moved to Stevens Point, and I have statistical records of that because my mom, who didn't know anything about sports, saved the articles they put in the paper. And there's some good ones. And my favorite one, which I should have pulled out of a scrapbook and put here because she saved a few. Losing pitcher Dave Koch was tagged for 6 runs in the top of the 6th. And she had it highlighted and underlined. It was awesome. She didn't know what that meant, but she was proud. Everybody, once you get the stats down, then the Bible back then was the baseball encyclopedia, the Macmillan Baseball Encyclopedia. And I asked for that for years for Christmas. I don't think I got it for 3 or 4 years of asking. My parents would get me like the sports encyclopedia that had a few pages of baseball and a few pages of swimming and a few pages of track and all that kind of stuff. And it was hard to explain to them, no, I want this book that doesn't have any pictures in it. It's got a bunch of numbers, it's really thick, and it's $50. Eventually they got it. And that, of course, is pretty awesome. I still have the book on the shelf behind me and don't refer to it very often because now stats are a lot easier to come by. That was my favorite Christmas present, in a close race with the calculator that had all the functions, all 4 functions, and had lights on it, so I could do batting averages in bed. But stats then, access was so different than it is now. Now there's team sites and mega sites like Baseball Reference and RetroSheet, and even sites like Seamheads. Now you can actually look at Negro League stats, whereas in the 70s, when you'd read about Josh Gibson, all you'd see is purported to hit 800 home runs, and Satchel Paige was great, and that's about it. That's about all you need. Now you can look and see numbers and do your comparisons, and of course learn about more than 3 or 4 great players. Back then, and again, if you're over 40, your social community for tabletop games like this niche market was basically Street and Smiths. The annual Street and Smiths came out with all the ads for the new games. Companies back then had limited newsletters. There weren't any multi-game newsletter type things. It would just be the occasional newsletters announcing sales and new seasons and things like that. But the Street and Smiths was the thing. And I know every year I'd read over all the new games, write for brochures. Couldn't afford them for a few years, but once I could afford them, I'd buy all of them because it was always fun to see how different games handle different things. And it still is. It's a blast to go online and see people creating games, see how they handle different situations in different sports. And every game has its own theories built into it. So I still spend a lot of time doing that. Today, of course, it's a lot different. The community that play this type of games is still much smaller than playing like now a traditional video game with the joystick or hand control of some sort. But now there's a lot better community, a lot better access, like what we're doing this evening. If there's 100 people here, that obviously you didn't have the internet in the 70s, but you wouldn't get 100 people together very often to talk about this. Now even our forum has 4,000 to 5,000 visitors or members. There's a lot of individual league sites with members. There's quite a few fan sites with quite a few members. There's third-party sites, places like Digital to Dice podcast, which covers not just individual games. They'll have shows on that's like one specific game or one specific company, but they cover, it's kind of a little bit more of a laid-back way of covering. That's not even the right way to describe it. It reminds me of in high school and college when my 8 or 10 friends had leagues and we would sit down and discuss the merits of different games and what kind of house rules we wanted to do to make the games work for us. So it's kind of cool. It's a modern way to do that, and got to check those things out. 1983 was the first year that I published a board game, a baseball board game that we did for a few years during college. I started college in 80 and had some computer classes and loved it and bought an old Radio Shack computer. Not old, it was new, I'm sorry. Probably cost $3,000, and of course it only had 5.25-inch floppies, so your storage was pretty limited. But I like playing around with, at that point, coming up with computer games. And I know I did a basketball game, which was basically just a stat generator. And for this board game that I published, I came up with a system for creating the cards. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work because we did 30 players per team. And there's a brochure for that. And during college, it was fun, and it was hectic, and it was a fun way to get into Street and Smiths and come up with a new product. I had a baseball card mail order business at the time, so I was familiar with Street and Smiths. This picture is from the original brochure in 1983, so I would have been 20 at the time. The address is my parents' address, so these were coming out of my parents' basement. We still do have a few cards around. Not anything I have for sale though. Whenever people see them selling on eBay for a few $100s for a set, we get flooded with emails about, do you got any of those sitting around? And I don't have many sitting around, so they're not going anyplace. Get some cards here. There's the brochure, inside of the brochure from the first year, and the outside, and how to order. 1995, included shipping. And there's some cards. I knew I wanted to do computer games then, the strategy type. There wasn't really the same kind of market for being able to create and distribute something, but I did figure out programming for what was going to go on the cards. Didn't have it set so that it would typeset it. I paid a friend of mine to fill in the grids, and then we reverse did it on the computer. So doing 780 cards that way was pretty time consuming, but it's a good way to pay a friend who still mentions that. Didn't actually publish a football game until 1992. That was their first game. And that's still their most popular game, just a little bit ahead of baseball. The genesis of that was a 1989, I call it a Packer geek trip with my brother Tom. We went to Green Bay for a day just to go to the Packer Hall of Fame, drive by Vince Lombardi's house or Bart Starr's house, that kind of thing. All that important stuff that you get to do when you live in Wisconsin. And on the way back, we had a baseball game that we played, league, probably 10 of us. And he said, hey, you should make a football game, Dave. And he said it in such a manner that, this was probably October, and he thought, well, maybe by November we'd have a game. Well, this is 3 years later, and there was a game, and we're still updating it every single year. But that's been fun. We've always had some family in some way, shape, or form involved in it. We had a retail store up until 2001. We closed that to go full time with the games, and within a year we had the basketball game out. Another year was baseball. Hockey came a few years later, and then golf came a few years after that. That's my personal tour. I want to give you a little bit of a tour of the game itself, and then open it up to questions. I set up an exhibition game with the Chuck Thompson Memorial Baseball League. That's a league that's been playing, it's a retro league that's been playing for 20 or so years. If somebody on here is in the league, they can maybe pop that up in the chat for later. It's a draft league. You can see by the rosters. The rosters don't make any sense to you, although Bunbury's on Baltimore, so that's pretty cool. These are two of the best teams in the league. But it's a continuous ownership draft league that they started with our game that many years ago and continue to draft aggressively, compete through the years. I'll just show a few of the game screens. This is, I don't have photographs or player photos for this season or for this league, but the game screen is very customizable. If you have photographs, you can have them at the player positions, the batter positions, by the scoreboard, by the stat boxes, pretty much everywhere. And it's very customizable. I can pop that screen up for you real quick without spending too much time on it. The player displays,
hey Dave, I'm still seeing the Action PC football. I don't know if everybody else is.
Did I share the wrong screen? Let me just flip that around here. Better?
Yep, that's it, Dave. Thanks.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Well, you missed the opening screen, but that's okay. As I was saying, you can go any number of ways with the game screen here. You can go to a full screen display, and you can decide which lineups you want on the screen, or if you don't want any lineups or any stat boxes, so you just have a clean baseball field. I tend to like this where the display is smaller because I like to have all the stats everywhere. All the lineups with all the stats. And if I have pictures for a league, then I have the pictures on there too. It's like it popped up here. You can go, got a lot of different options here for how you want to display it, and you can test out how they're going to look too. We also have, turn on the video, chalkboard. got the sound turned off. There's everything from background sound, crowd noises, crack of the bat, hit by pitch, umpire sounds, all that's in here. I've got it turned off just so it's not a distraction. We also have a plugin for the Microsoft narrator, and the narrator can do full play-by-play or play synopsis at the end of the play, or what's probably the most popular is to do the inning summary afterwards. This league has, again, this doesn't have the player cards on it, but you can pop up lineups and you can see the real stats for the season, the replay stats, and it also has the career stats because this league has a long career involved in it. The game will track all those for you. Got the chalkboard turned on. I'll run through a few plays and then show you a few other features real quick. I've got the speed very fast, obviously, which doesn't help a lot. There's a pop-up that tells you that's his first triple of the day. Just helpful. You can switch, you see down here, it says AB mode. You can switch to pitch-by-pitch mode. You can also have league rules set up for pitch-by-pitch to be used when you're in certain innings or base situations, certain scores. So you can set it up to only be in key situations. Popular way to play it is to have it play at bat mode up until whatever inning, and then you switch to pitch-by-pitch. So you can still play a game in 15, 20 minutes and still have the excitement of going pitch by pitch on everything. Let's do a couple more plays, but again, these icons, you see the big Thornton with his fielding rating running after the ball. You can set those up to all kinds of different displays if you want to. And that was just a pop-up display box. Player displays, we'll pop up Bumbry here. You can see all of his ratings here, his game ratings. You can see what he's done, what his real life stats are, his replay, his career in this league, which is pretty cool when a league has a long history. And it doesn't have to be a league. It can be your own replay. If you're a good baseball fan and you're doing the Brewers from 1970 on, you pop on the Brewers and you can see the all-time leaders and the total stats. Just a plethora of stats here by month, by highs, by keeps track of all the different breakdowns. Same thing for pitching. Pitcher here. You see Tom SABR has 194 career wins in this league. So I'm guessing they have a big event coming in that league, and the game will alert you during the game as to career milestones. Somebody hits a big home run or wins a big game. I like this number here too. 160 career complete games. That's pretty good. Keeps track of the high games for everybody. Game logs, I don't know if I have that for the league here. No, I don't. I just have the stats. I'll take you to a roster. This roster you can access outside of the game or inside of the game. Lots of different categories here. You can check out a team history. So you can see who coached the team in the league. Those obviously are not real big league managers, but people we know, some might even be on here tonight. You can check the current roster, their career leaders. Is Ron Fairley the career home run leader on this team right now? And of course, all this basic stats are sortable by everything from every stat, fielding at different positions, whatever you want to do. Same thing with the pitchers. We also have something, try to make, one of the game theories we go by is we shoot for realistic stats, but they have to be accounted for in realistic manners. That also means that we allow for things to happen that didn't actually happen. For example, a guy may have 500 at bats and no home runs. He can, given the right player, he can still hit a home run if maybe he had a lot of doubles with no speed, or he had a sufficient number of sacrifice flies. You get him against the right pitcher or the right wind, he can't hit a home run. and he can hit home run. We don't have things that govern the results. That's to say, if a 300 hitter is hitting 350 at midseason, there's nothing pulling him back. Every play is an independent result. So there's nothing that cheats on the results. And that works in the reverse too. If Ron Theobald hit 1 home run and 400 at bats, and he hits 2 in the first week of the year, there's nothing saying he's not going to hit another one. He's still got a 1 in 400 shot of hitting one. And yeah, Ron Theobald was one of my favorite players. That's why I mentioned him a couple times. So, not a great player, just one of my favorite players. We all got guys like that. Get the manager here. You can set up a custom manager for each team, pitching rotations, daily lineups. If you don't want to use daily lineups, you can set up preferred lineups against lefty and righty, and you can name them whatever you want. You can set up lineups against upcoming starters, preferences for everything else. And you can do that kind of thing at the player level too. I click on Alan Bannister here, and you've got all the different settings, all the pitching, batting, base running settings you can do for them. So you can really dive deep into all this. All the seasons from 1880 to present come with defaulted or are custom settings, but you can change them as you want to. A couple more things from the game screen. If you want pitching change, you click on the bullpen. Gives you all their stats, everybody that's available, the lineups, the matchups, and also if you see on the far right here, this is league specific. The hit percentage, double percentage, triple percentage. You can display exactly what the projected matchup is if you're going to pull that guy into pitch or pinch hit if you're popping up the pinch hitting screen. Another thing unique to our games is in all of the games, we have what's called an alternate reality setting. You can start the season with alternate reality set in a player. I'll just pop up Bunbury again. What do we do there? You don't know. It's a little bit more of a real life way of managing. Like right now we're in spring training and you kind of know how your guy did in the past. You have an idea how he might do this year. We have the same thing with this. You look at Bunbury for this season, he was a 317 hitter, 4 home runs, so and a lot of stolen bases. And when you play alternate reality, you don't know that he'll be available for 133 games. You don't know if he'll be better or worse than that. The alternate reality doesn't change the guy a lot, but it makes some changes. So you have to do a real life GM look at things while you're playing. Like Bunbury's hitting 220. Maybe it's not a good year for him. Let's call up somebody else. So it's something we offer in all of our games. It's just a little bit of a different way to play. Let's see what else I can show you on the game screen. There's all different kinds of options for what play-by-play is displayed, for what sound effects you use, narrator, screen. You can zoom forward to any point in the game. You can click on analysis of batter pitcher if you want to do that. So you can check out all the matchups. Those things can be turned off. Some leagues like more of the back of the baseball card type look, which is fun. It's fun to look back at a 1971 Paul Blair card and not have all the stats. You don't know how he hit against lefties or righties. It's just these are his home runs. You're not looking at his on base, his slugging, or any of that stuff. So that's kind of fun. We also have a generic splits option, so you don't have to look for guys that are reverse splits. Try to have as many different options as we can. Let's see. I'm gonna get off of the game screen here. And I know we're running out of time for questions, so I'm not going to run through all the reports. Let's see. Database report that pretty much covers everything. You can sort it by player, team. You can search by player. Put different limits on, minimums on what you want to do, and print it, save it to a CSV file. Pretty much everything's in there. You can customize all these reports and sort them however you want to sort them. Same thing's available for your league history. Let's see. So here. We have the
Dave, I don't know if those reports pop into a different window, but I don't see them. If you pulled up that page.
I popped one up briefly. I took it off.
Okay.
Is that on? It's still on the.
Yeah, I don't see it.
The opening screen is still on.
Still have the ballpark view right now.
Really?
Or the game screen, basically.
And I don't have that up. I wonder if I've got a different screen up here. Just 1 second here.
So Dave, while you're looking that up, because I know you can multitask, if I was to take Baby Doll Jacobson out of the dead ball era and put him on a team today, does anything adjust in the game, or is that something I would have to do?
No, everything is normalized. That's a good question because people always ask how we come up with the results. We have ballpark. I can pop on that screen. Let me see if I can get the screen sharing back here again.
I like to use Baby Doll because with a name like that, hey.
Yeah, of course, of course. I've lost my Zoom screen. There we go. I'll just give you a quick look there. Okay. We compare players. Players are compared to their current year. They're normalized for their current year out to whatever year you're playing them in. And a simplified version of that would be to say, if he hit 10% more home runs in 1930 and you play him in 2023, he's going to hit 10% more home runs in 2023 than the average player. So you're always comparing how they did to the average player. That's kind of a simplified version of it because you're also doing the same thing for parks. Players are also compared to their actual home park, which they play half their games in, and that's extrapolated out too. Then the result itself, you take those two basic formulas and put it in whatever era you've selected for your league. So you can be playing 2023 teams, call it a 1906 league, and your home run leader is going to hit fewer than 20 home runs. I'm guessing. I don't remember the exact numbers, but so it extrapolates it out to the year you're playing. So yeah, you don't have to do any of that manual normalization stuff. It's all built in, and this goes back. Era goes back to 1880. Same thing with the parks.
I think we were talking last time. I might have brought up the example of putting Joe DiMaggio at Fenway and Ted Williams at Yankee Stadium, right? Something like that. So,
right, yeah, and again, they're compared against the year of the park that they played in. We've got that for every year. The park adjustments for every year, and yeah, so they're compared. So you can easily do that. You can easily make the trade, and the trade that never happened, and not have to do any of your own adjustments. It'll take care of that for you. So, and I know people have done that. That's one that comes up quite often. I think it's probably a test for the game. I can't get at the my Zoom bar is in front there. Oh, here we go. So yeah, the ballparks, every park is in there, and you can click on any year and see what kind of adjustment they had, if it's available. It's also a what if tool. Which is handy for draft leagues. So I don't have a team in here. You can pop in look in your league, change the park, make the home park whatever you want it to be. So if you're drafting for a team that's playing in Fenway in 2023, you can put Fenway 2023 on one side of the screen. It'll display. They can't do it because they've got the league already set up here. One side of the screen, it'll show what they hit in real life. The other side, it'll show what they'll hit in Fenway Park for that year. So you can actually see, if you're drafting a guy, you can see how he's going to look. And I know in the 2000s, we would get people complaining that why is Todd Helton hitting 50 to 70 points lower than what he hit in real life, and look up his real stats and you can see how he did away from home. There's a lot more I can show you report wise and creating and drafting teams, because all the tools are there that we use to create teams. Draft leagues are extremely popular because it's so easy to create teams and draft players and trade them between teams. And like I said, change Hank Aaron to Dave Koch and do basically whatever you want. We have all the tools there. But I know you want to get into some question and answer. So I will unshare. I can find that again.
So if anybody's shy to ask questions verbally, you could put it into the chat and I'll read them off to Dave. But, oh, Matthew's wondering if there's any plans to offer season projections for baseball. He's seen them offered for basketball and hockey.
Yes, we do baseball every year, have for about 20 years. Comes out early in April. And I already told you the Brewers are going to be the best team this year. So
where are my Jays, Dave?
I don't care. Other than the Brewers, we don't really care. Depends. If you want to send us a credit card number, we can work something out. No, it's spring training time. The Brewers have to be number one. We'll make your Blue Jays number one for a day too.
Oh, well, can we fire the GM?
Do whatever you want. You're the GM, actually. You play the game, you're the GM. So yeah.
Okay. If you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand. What's the latest updates for your golf game?
Are you reading that one, or I'm not seeing that here?
Yeah,
but
yeah, I'm reading it.
I don't have there's an update in the works. I can't give you a time frame yet for it. My son Ryan does that, and he's got a different position, a different place now. So it's limited time, but it's coming. It's not coming this week, not coming this month, but it'll be coming. And I know the game is really popular, so that's a pretty common email.
Yeah, my golf game really stinks because I'm lucky if I get out once a year.
You don't have good weather for golf, do you?
Yeah, we get decent weather at times. Right now, today was -15, but tomorrow it's supposed to be like +6. So it's we really haven't had much of a winter this year up here. We had a week, 10 days that was pretty cold, and that's it. Not much snow at all either.
Yeah.
So anyway, come on, guys. You had tons of questions. Do you have a favorite era to play?
Oh, easily. Yeah. Mid-70s for baseball or football. Well, actually any sport, mid-70s. And that's probably what most people are, the era that they played growing up. I mean, like my Brewers were bad in the 70s. The Packers were bad in the 70s, but it's still fun to play. Because you get the Brewers, you get to the late 70s and it's awesome. And in fact, when I'm doing play testing, I'll very often just pop up those old ones, because then you know all the players. You know, when you're 10, 12 years old, you have a lot more time to memorize all the players. And I know my kids are the same way. The years that they played when they were 7, 8 years old, those are the ones they like to play because they know all the players, not going to be surprised by anything.
Hey, Dave, this is Kevin Johnson.
Hey, Kevin.
I got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
You kind of touched on this, but if we had Mark McGwire, let's say 1998, and we move him to 1908 American League, Detroit Tigers, obviously probably still going to lead the league in home runs, I would assume, but does he become, instead of being like the best player in the league, does he become more of an average player because he's so home run dependent, or does the game like give him some more doubles and singles and his average goes up enough that that he's still kind of an elite player, even in a totally different.
Yeah, that is a good question, because it's kind of it is going to be player dependent. You know, his home runs. How many home runs did he hit that year?
Yes, 70.
Compared to the average. So I mean, again, all things being equal, you're going to the 1908 average then. Is he a 20 home run guy? I don't know. And then the doubles are obviously going to be lower in a year when there were a lot of doubles. So batting average, was he above average in 98? Yeah, he probably was. So he's going to be above average in 08. So that's, I mean, and you're really parsing a lot of different things together there because there's the left-right breakdowns in the home parks. He could be in a different home park, but yeah, so guys are going to be different, obviously. He's going to lose a lot of his home runs, but he's still going to be the guy.
Okay.
And we don't have a
then, right? He's not going to hit as many home runs, obviously, but the game will give him enough doubles and things that he'll still be.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Formidable, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't have any juice or anti-juice formula, so that's not figured in. We haven't normalized for that yet.
Okay. So my second question is about players who don't have much playing time. Like you had a guy who was a backup and he only played a partial season. And let's say he didn't have any sacrifice hits. If you try to bunt with him, is he going to be an average bunter, or is he going to be a terrible bunter because he
probably below average unless he's a pitcher? Then you assume that that's probably what his skill level at max would have been. But yeah, like for general stats, if you look at a guy, I'll use the 1982 Brewer one because I remember when we did the board game, wanting to figure out a good way to do this, but it's always bugged me through the years that you look at the 1982 Brewers batting and their top batting average guy was Bob Scooby because he was 2 for 3. So we kind of smooth those things out because no manager ever played a game knowing that the guy on the bench, the pinch hitter on the bench, is a lefty that's going to hit 666 against him. So we kind of smooth those things out because it's not realistic. Again, it's a kind of a balance between what's realistic stats and what's realistic gameplay. So.
Terry's wondering if there's any chance of displaying war values for players.
That comes up all the time. Yeah, possibly. It's a little tricky to fit it into the game engine the way it is, but it's possible.
Terry, war's not everything.
And when we put it in, it'll be something you don't have to use if you don't want to. So, because I do see all the people complaining about that.
Don't get me started about war.
Yeah.
Okay. Dave wants to know, does taking a pitch and the resulting count change the chances of ensuing a result?
Well, it depends on what happens on the pitch. If you take a pitch and it's a ball, obviously you're in a better hitter situation. You have a new count the next pitch. So if you take it and it's a strike, you're in a worse situation.
Steven wants to know, can you briefly go over new features in the latest baseball release?
It's probably easiest to see them on the website. I can tell you what people like the most are 2 things. They like the fact that you can click the screen and get a full baseball card display of everybody that's on the field, which is really cool if you've got pictures inside. They like how the career stats are intertwined with the roster and the player cards. Again, the league I just showed you, that's pretty awesome to pop up Tom Seaver and see that he's at 196 career wins in that league. So I think those are the 2 big things. I'm probably missing something because now that seems like that was so long ago, but I know it just came out in December.
This always comes up no matter who the developer or creator is. How do you assess ratings for players?
Depends on what the rating is. A little bit of it's subjective, but we try to use stats as much as we can to get arguments out of it. And I know with there's stats for everything in baseball, but I know years ago people would complain, not a lot of people, but some people would complain that Derek Jeter had such a low range rating. And I mean, everybody knows now that, yeah, he had a high fielding percentage. He didn't make as many tough plays, but so we try to use stats and zone ratings as much as we can. And if you have a complaint on ratings for baseball or football, you just talk to John Kemeter, and he does the final ratings for those. So that's where your complaints go. They're perfect every time though, right, John?
Gil wants to know if Yamamoto is going to be in the 2024 season, and if so, is it just a projection?
Yeah, it would only be a projection, yeah, because our seasons are all based on real stats. So the 2023 has the exact final official stats. But the projection, projection usually has a bunch of extra guys. So, and he'd be one for sure.
Now the game, you've got more than just MLB players, do you not? If I recall right.
We don't do minor league. We do for baseball. We do Negro League sets.
Negro League, but you haven't done like Japan or
No,
Korea.
no, we haven't. There's a lot of user created ones. So if you go on some of the fan sites, you'll see those. So maybe that's what you've seen.
Yeah. Well, there's, we've talked to many games, so they're, they're different.
Sure. Hey, we know people play other games, and that doesn't bother us at all. Like I said earlier,
Nope.
every game has got its own theory, its own art form to it, and we are not offended at all when people say they play other games. So,
and that's a big note for our complete audience. Derek and I will not be backed into a corner to say this is the game we recommend. We will never do that.
Right.
If our members want to write an article and say they really like this game and this is why, or didn't like this of another game, we encourage that. But there is no way, because that's not fair, right?
No.
Everybody...
Well, and it's also not. I see the arguments online. People say, "What's the best football game?" And everybody's got their own opinion because everybody has a different flavor that they like, and everybody likes how different things are handled. So I don't, and I should say too, because everything's online, if somebody buys our game and they don't like it, we're not offended because they tried it, and we know. I mean, you all know that the most popular games are the joystick hand control games, which most of you probably aren't that interested in. So people try our games and they don't like it. It's a 30-second deal to refund it. We don't have many refunds, but it's, we're not offended at all. So
yeah, also depends what you want to do. Do you want to be the manager every
Right.
pitch, everything, or do you want to be kind of the owner, the general manager up top, letting
Right.
somebody who knows about baseball manage the team while you're managing getting people and stuff. So
it's a different animal completely. Yeah.
absolutely. And like you said, the joystick game where you're actually batting the ball.
Right. Which I can't do myself. So I obviously
Wow.
don't care for that kind of game. So
Well, I strike out a fair amount playing the show once in a while. Greg is wondering, is there much subjectivity in the ratings, such as arm fielding range and running ratings, or is it pretty much from a stat source?
I would say I think range is the one that's closer to being stat sourced, most close, but there's some subjectivity to it. The others, there's a little bit more, like base running rating. It's a little bit of our formulas put into it. I don't think there's anything that's completely stat based or completely subjective, but they fall in the range somewhere.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see more ratings and stuff. Usually at the analytics conference that when it was just online over COVID, I attended a few of them, and they often had people who were giving updates on the cameras and the stuff that we, the stats cast and the stuff we see on. So I think we're going to start seeing even more stats to make that stuff a bit easier for you guys. That it's not
for sure. If my my running watch Strava tells me what elevation I'm at and what pace I'm going wherever I go, they can certainly do that for Major League Baseball players.
Yeah. Bill is saying when he plays seasons from earlier years, some players who may have played for more than one team will sometimes have replay stats that only reflect one of the teams. So in short, they may show 119 innings pitched with 21 hits given up compared to Baseball Reference that has the complete totals.
Depends on how you have it set up. I mean, unless he encountered a player with an error, but you can do transaction dates. You can play with or without transaction dates. And if the transaction dates are turned on, the player should only appear on one team at a time. But you can play where you combine the partial players into one and he's only on one team, which is what people will do for draft leagues. Of course, they don't want 3 copies of a guy in the league.
Yeah. Only give me the best team he played with.
That's cheating.
Of course it is. Does the game treat an opener differently in terms of fatigue compared to the pitcher's normal relief appearance?
Depends on if he's rated as a starter. But yeah, it would if he doesn't have a starter rating on there.
You got Ebbets Field in there?
We have park data for every park from 1880 to present, and data for every year. And Seamheads provides us with the updates every year, so we try to keep up with all that.
Okay. I think you should play Milwaukee at the Mistake by the Lake in Toronto every game. How are the random events such as weather, injuries, fluke plays determined?
Some are truly random, depends on what they are. Like I had mentioned earlier, the chance of a guy hitting a home run that didn't hit a home run, that's not completely random because they have to have some reason where they could have legitimately hit a home run. That's kind of like in football. If an NFL team puts a guy back for a kickoff, he's got to have a greater than zero chance of running 100 yards for a touchdown, or the guy wouldn't have put him back. It might be a low chance, but he's got to have a better chance than that. Some are truly random. It's crazy random stuff that won't affect the stats, like the hidden ball trick, which does not come up very often. And I'd say every year somebody message me and say, hey, I like that you just put the hidden ball trick in the game this year. Well, it's been in there for 20 some years, but obviously it doesn't happen very often. So those are the kind that are truly random that don't make any statistical significant difference to the results, but happen. We add a lot of rare plays every year because I always feel like, and most people probably do, when you watch a few baseball games, real games, most games you see something that you don't remember seeing before or in a long time. And so I try to make sure we have all those things in there. Pretty good variety.
You have Randy Johnson hitting a bird?
I don't know if we did. I probably mentioned that one night, and my wife said, you can't put that in there. I'm just guessing. So,
yeah. Well, it happened more than once because Dave Winfield hit one too. And then he was arrested.
I'll tell her it's important.
Yeah.
I've got a question from the previous one. Which sport was most challenging to
was the most
make into a game, and why? I don't even remember what I answered last time, but off the top of my head, I would say, even though we've had it the longest, it would be football, probably because I spent the most time working on it way back when. And there's a lot of subjective things to get in there to make it work right. Like a lot of moving parts, right, on every play.
Exactly, a lot of moving parts. We try to incorporate, when you're looking at the offensive line, for example, against the defense, we try to incorporate how the result is different at every spot based on whatever play you call. And we've got tons of different plays. So I think we've got that down pretty good. Between Stats Incorporated through the years and SIS now, you can get a lot of data like that. So now when you look at the football game and you can click on sweep left or sweep right, you see, depending on who's in there, what kind of results you can have. And you also notice when there's an injury, when you lose a top guy, you can say, well, that changed a lot. And that's how it should be. So that part was probably tricky because it's a little bit different to do that. But otherwise, baseball, the stats for baseball are the easiest. Baseball games have been around for years, and some of the stats are easy. The 50-50 split thing, once you get away from a batter pitcher split, you can get more realistic and become a lot more refined in what you're doing. But then with baseball, it comes down to how you want to present it, how you want to come up with your results. We have the model that we have for baseball is a little different because every event is checked for an error. For example, you see a ground ball to shortstop. We don't have many results that are just ground out to short. It's a ground ball to the shortstop. That's checked for an error. You check for a throwing error, and you check for an error from the first baseman. So that's all comes into play. So it's not as simple as here's your result. So baseball, much easier than football until you get into the details like that. But yeah, football, all the moving parts make it tricky. But I think that's what makes our football game so great. If you like detail and you like the strategy and you like the chess match, especially when you're playing somebody online. But we do try to keep people off balance because there's an expression that we've known about for decades, which we enjoy. It's called getting cooked. And that's when you lose a game because something happened that you don't think should have happened. And a longtime customer this morning sent me a text and said he
just wanted to let me know that he got cooked in a football game last night. He had 500 yards. His opponent had 200. He had him in time of possession 40-20, and he still lost the game. So he got cooked. Of course, that happens in real life. So now when I watch a real life game, I always think, oh, the Brewers just got cooked or whatever. So they never refer to it that way on TV, though. So, which might be good PR. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Here in Canada, we tend to use another word and then cooked, but I don't think I could put that on while we are.
No, you said you can't. You said you got to watch your language. So
I got to watch the language. Although
cooked
we
is
do
okay,
have
though.
we do have somebody who goes through and double checks everything I say, I think. So do you have your own projection models? And if not, is there models that you prefer?
For baseball projection,
I guess so, yeah.
yeah, we have our own formulas we've developed through the years, and they work out pretty well. And we make sure that we get the rosters updated at the start of the season. And yeah, I think so. I think we've got it pretty good.
How would you describe the pitch by pitch model in the game?
Not sure what you mean. I mean, it's like I said earlier, you're going, instead of going with the full at bat, you're going with the pitch, and the stat outcome changes after every pitch, and you can see that on the screen if you have that turned on your rules screen. I know there are some people that play full games that way. When I use it, I prefer situational for sure.
Matthew's thanking you for releasing 2 new Negro League seasons recently. He just saw that 1923 and 1945 are now available.
That's correct. And I don't have a date for you yet, but we're working with Seam Heads on a history collection like we have for baseball and football for the Negro Leagues, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. It was mentioned at the last SABR convention and stuff. SABR's invested in getting a whole bunch of, I guess there were Negro newspapers of the time.
Okay.
And they've increased that, and they're looking and finding the information, and Baseball Reference is using all that to update all their stats. So it's tough to find it. It truly is, but they're finding new ways to get it. So
Yeah.
Pitch time error, is that a rare play in the 2023 model?
Yeah. Is it a rare play? Yeah. We put it, let's see, I put it in, trying to think of how we put it in. We put it in so that it's more frequent at the start of the year. How's that? That's the way we put it in last year, and that is the way it was obviously going to work out. So, but you'll still see it, but yeah, it's rare.
Greg's just kind of sharing a statement here. He's incorporated DMB field images into the game. I don't know what DMB is, but I'm sure you do. He says your game offers so many approaches ways to approach the beautiful game. A huge thanks.
Thanks. Thank
Mike's
you.
got a suggestion for you. In the draft, he ended up with the same player on 3 teams because he played on 3 teams that year. How can he fix that?
Well, before you draft, you want to delete the partial players. There's a tool for that. It's 2 clicks, and then you don't have partial players in there.
But you can have the combined players, I'm assuming. Then
correct. Yeah, the game that comes with the combined players, so you can delete the partials and you have the combined.
Yeah.
And it does that. The 2024 game does that automatically for older seasons that we didn't release that way. Excuse me. 20 some years ago, I did not anticipate that people were going to do retro draft leagues like the one I showed you tonight. So over the last couple of years, we've set it up so that the game will pick up the first time you load a season. There's 3 John Smiths here, and they need to be combined into one. So you've got your 3 and your 1 also. So.
Okay, so I've exhausted the questions in the chat. I'm sure Derek has a few that came out last meeting that he might want to jump on.
Yep. Any chance of producing CFL football games or older college hoops seasons?
Older college hoops, the guy that does our older college hoops, he's part-time, and he's like John, he's been with us for almost 30 years.
and he's got a list of things he wants to attack as he gets to them. So that's, you'll see we come out with tournaments from time to time. Full college hoop seasons are a massive project because you go back in the 70s and you're not going to find full stats with minutes played for 300 some teams. So there's nothing uniform about it. But yeah, we get requested that a lot. CFL, we talk about that from time to time too, but entering different rules doesn't just mean changing the downs. It means changing the strategies in the engine for what the computer coach does. So I wouldn't say it's never going to happen. It's possible. I know it seems like it would be easier than it is, but there's a lot of different detail that have to be worked out to do it.
And remember,
so
CFL, not just one less down. We got a bigger field.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
we
I
got-
know. I know.
And we got bigger balls. So there you go.
All right. This one's a two-parter. Any chance for historical manager packs? And I guess maybe if you can briefly touch on, I guess like manager profiles, or how would you configure the computer manager to maybe, you know, pinch hit more often, steal more often, that type of thing.
Okay. Well, as I showed you on the manager screen, you can do it on the team level very easily. And when they're defaulted, it's based on the players on the team. So you can go in there and change it. I did write that down in January too, as a possibility. Do you want to have here's your Billy Martin manager, and it comes in and changes all your settings based on that. You know, guys you're going to have a slower hook. You're going to do anything that would be associated with Billy Martin. Of course, then, you know, the user has to know that that's changing how those players are going to perform, but it's a possibility. Yeah.
All right, let's see what else we got from the previous one here. There's one.
If you take Billy Martin, he'll probably get fired anyway. So
yeah, so you need to have one of the many Yankee managers that came in mid-season to replace him there as well.
Have rotating manager profiles, right?
Right. Here's one about the animation elements. They really like how the animations have taken a big step over the last few years.
Thank you.
Can you discuss a little about how the interaction between the pitcher and batter affect play result?
I think I covered that a little bit. That also is a common question. It's always batter compared to his era, pitcher compared to his era, each compared to their own park, and then extrapolated out to whatever you selected as your rules league, which if you're doing 2023, that part's going to be the same, but so they all are compared to their era, and it's based on their left, right, or if you have that rule selected.
There's another one. Is the chalkboard something you plan to keep on expanding and increasing the audio side, like more realistic narrator voice?
Yes, on the chalkboard, especially when there's new rare plays added, trying to faithfully reproduce them. Chalkboard's not intended to be a video game element. It's just intended to give a realistic representation of what happened. As to the narrator, I'm guessing that at some point in the near future, you'll be able to use whatever voice you want, not from us. We're using Microsoft's voices that come with the computer, but I'm guessing there'll be third parties that have voices that you can do. It's not practical for a small company like us to pay Bob Uecker to come in and do something like that when the names change every year and things like that. But when I use the narrator, I use the synopsis at the end of the inning because I think that's fun. But I picked Microsoft David just because I like that voice.
Okay.
sorry. Well, Derek's looking up the next one. I mean, I get Sirius XM, so I get all the ball games while they're playing, and I love listening to Bob Uecker still.
Yeah, he's not doing too many games anymore, but yeah, he's a classic.
And it just makes me smile because he's made fun of himself for so many years.
Yep.
And
still does.
You think back to the Major League movie when he's doing the announcing of that one and other things. But yeah,
I think he just turned 90. Did he just turn 90, John? I think so. Nice to work at 90 though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Part-time, and have people love him wherever he goes. So
Yeah, he's obviously not doing it for the money.
right. When I met him, it was an autograph thing back in the early 80s. Me and 4 friends went to spring training, and he was sitting on a perch at the stadium in Sun City, about 20 feet above the field, behind home plate, just wearing a pair of shorts, broadcasting the game. You know, I don't know if he was drinking anything, but it was just him sitting up there, and we were throwing up balls between innings for him to autograph, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, in Toronto, we've got Buck Martinez, and it's funny to listen talk. I mean, he may not have a game one day, but he still goes and he watches the game,
Yeah.
right? It's quite interesting because you know how much these guys love the game.
Oh,
A
yeah.
couple questions here about and I think you just covered some of this, but incorporating AI voices and adding voices and stuff. But I think you more or less just covered some of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Derek, what you got now?
Yeah, this one was just more of a comment. The frequent service updates are really fantastic. I don't think other games do this nearly as frequently. So kudos there.
That's cool. We try.
Um,
We try not to wait till next year if there's something with the game that can be fixed and everybody can get it for free. So
right. This one, will there be improvements in the chalkboard feature in the hockey game?
will there be a what?
Will there be improvements to the chalkboard in the hockey
No.
game?
With hockey and basketball, we play around with it as an option. But I'm a little hesitant because, and it's largely because of the basketball game we tried playing when we were kids, where you couldn't actually play a full game because if you want to do pass by pass. I don't know of anybody that actually finished a full game of that. And I don't want the basketball game or the hockey game to turn into a pass. We have played with more lead up passes to a shot. Now you have the shot video. But playability is a big thing. I want to make sure that the games are playable.
For sure. I just noticed on your website, to give it a bit of a plug, I noticed you got a sale on some of the key or base products. So if anybody's interested, trying another game that you don't play, hey, they're on sale right now.
On sale, and if you don't like them, you just email us and we refund it really fast. So. And we don't cry.
There you go.
We're honored that you tried, right?
Okay, Derek, you got anything else?
I think I ran through the previous chat questions. I think we're caught up there. So I don't know if anybody else wants to go off mute and speak.
I will say
Dave,
it's
I got
always
one for
like
you.
it was last time. It's cool for me to see all the familiar names on here. A lot of familiar names.
Dave, I got a question for you. I play in a random league right now where we draft the players, but they chose a random year. So, for example, we could own Ted Williams' career, but is there a way to randomize a year that you would get not stuck with, but you would end up with that year, and the next year wouldn't be a concurrent year, but just another random year? Is there a way to incorporate that into the game?
So there probably would be. I'm not sure how much of a demand there'd be for it, but I get it. You pick Ted Williams and they give you 1956, and then the next year you randomly get 1944. How about that?
That would be great. That's what we do now, but it would be more fun if the game, and again,
Sure.
I don't want to throw more programming at you, but it'd be more fun to have that randomization of what year you get of that certain player.
Okay. Yeah, there isn't.
love
That
that you
might
took
require
notes.
some work. I can see where that would be kind of cool, though.
Yeah, it just makes it more random, so you don't know the progression of a player year to year, but you do know that you're going to have his career. It just might be one of his bad years that you get stuck with.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. The retro leagues, obviously, they do it where you really have to study who do you want. Do you want to live with Robin Yount for his 50 error year, knowing you're going to have to carry him for a couple of years? But yeah, there's a lot of strategy to that. That's kind of cool.
Okay.
So we'll see it in the next update, right?
Yeah, not yet. If you want me to delay production of everything else, football game will be a month late this year.
Anybody else? Okay, not seeing anybody. Nobody's jumping. I want to thank you again, Dave. It hopefully everything recorded properly this time. I hit the
If
button
not, I'll be back in
properly.
March. I'll be back in March if it doesn't work. So
We do appreciate it. How far is Milwaukee from Minneapolis?
Milwaukee from Minneapolis, what is that? 4 hours, John?
Yeah,
3.5 to 4.
Well, you might have to come do a road trip in August and come visit us at SABR.
Yeah, somebody suggested that last time. I'm actually in Stevens Point. Well, Plover, our office is in Stevens Point, which is in the middle of Wisconsin. But that's still 3.5 hours to the Twin Cities. So, and I have a sister
Yeah.
that lives in Minneapolis, so I can go visit her.
Well, I got a day flying each way to go, so
Yeah.
Well,
But
we
yeah.
do have four Twins Hall of Famers are scheduled to be guest speakers at the event.
Which ones?
We've got Rod Carew, Jim Cott, Tony Oliva, Burt Blyleven, I think are the
Okay.
four.
Wow. That's cool.
Looking forward to that. Do you want to mention that we have a meeting next week with J. Thomas Hetrick? He's an author, and he's written a book about his 50 years of tabletop gaming. So that's on March 5th, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Now,
And
what's
we have
interesting
Derek.
there, you guys think you're a nerd based on the stuff I've read about our speaker next week. He kept track of all this games he simulated over 50 years of tabletop games. So, I think he might out nerd many of us.
Save those notebooks, right?
Yeah.
Never know. Yeah, and then April 30th, we have Derek Beckner, who does the Status Pro Advanced. So those are both in the queue. But Dave, again, yeah, thanks for coming back on with us. Really appreciate it.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you very much for the invite. And
Yep.
I'll come back anytime.
Yep.
And
Appreciate it.
if you
Great.
guys